Hello and welcome to the SME Focus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. On this week's show, we aim to highlight the aspects of UK manufacturing or topics that are of interest to SMEs. Therefore, my guest today is Russell Eyon, owner of Breakwell's Coatings and Paints and ARX Apparel and PPE. Hi, Russell.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad.
Brilliant. Preparing for this interview, I had a delve through LinkedIn. Where do we all go to find out things about people? And it tells me you've had a long career in the early days in management accountancy. So before I bore everybody to death, before we delve too deeply into the real world that you're in now, I'll quickly recap and mention that you've worked at companies including Headlam, Metsec, Walsall Paint, Sonopress, Sharps Bedrooms, Winland Bay, and Interserve. And then in, I noticed, 2011, you were working as head of management accounting at Goodridge Actuation Systems in Wolverhampton. And then later as divisional finance director at Hadley Industries in Birmingham. So that was up until 2016. So if it's not a hard task, can I ask you to summarize 2 decades of accountancy in a few minutes? And maybe, I don't know, is it worth commenting on your experiences working for both large pan-national companies and maybe medium-sized companies? So how was 2 decades in accountancy?
A lot more fun than people would expect, actually, being, accountancy's got that bad, that bad reputation, being quite boring, but quite interesting at times, being key to some of the decisions that were made. And many times would affect people's lives, So I remember one of my early jobs at Metsec, which is a steel cold rolled manufacturing business. I managed to work for Metsec for 5 years, and then it ended up at their main competitors in the UK for another 5 years. So it's quite good comparing the two companies. But the first set of management accounts I did at Metsec, I'd got a calculation wrong on the direct labour, and it nearly ended up in us making, I think it's about 8 or 9 people redundant. So having to confess to that, and I did get a real, I learned a lot from that one, shall we say. I did have a right kick in on that, and the supervisors on the shop floor came and saw me. So it was a good life lesson, that was, and I think that stuck with me throughout my career, and now being owner of SME or SMEs, I'm still influenced by that manufacturing experiences I've learned from that world. So I'm a qualified management accountant. So people always wonder, when I say that, they always ask, you bought that off eBay? Certainly my accountant does at the moment. He does their stat accounts, because these last 4 or 5 years, in the current 2 companies that I own, it's people want to say, "Oh, how's your P&L?" I haven't got time for a P&L. We're managing day to day on a gut feeling, cash flow, and I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but it's managed to keep me going really with some of the things I've learned in that 20 years before. The big thing I say to my partner is they're all the same figures. They're just more zeros at the end for when you're working for the bigger companies, really. So the principles and practices are still the same, just more zeros, and the errors have got more zeros in, So I've spent a lot of time the last probably couple of years wondering whether I should go back. Do I just stop, and go back to working for the big organisations? But then you can't influence things there. You just that classic stereotypical number in a bigger company or environment, organisation, and just another cog in the wheel. Whereas when you're running the ship, it's a lot different, for sure.
I mentioned the companies you worked at also. I mentioned the companies you worked at also because I think a lot of the people watching will recognise them as a lot of them are very manufacturing focused, very Midlands focused.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a big part of who you are from having watched you afar over LinkedIn for the last few years. So I think that's a thread that we'll probably come back to, definitely.
Yeah, I've never, you know, I've got friends that have gone all over the world and to work, and they come back and they've got, you know, all this experience, and you think, should I have done that? You know, but we're quite good in the West Midlands, you know, and the Black Country. We've got so much skill around these guys and girls around. They've got so much skill, and it gets overlooked quite a lot, really. You know, whereas in those manufacturing, helping out, packing on the end of a rolling machine, you know, the guys that were just tweaking the tooling and what have you. And it's like, how do you know how to do that? And he was like, I just know, because I've been doing it for 20, 30 years. And then when they're not there, you realise how skilled they are, you know. So we got a good, as you know, being based not too far, I guess, away from us. We tend to get overlooked a little bit, you know. I guess it's the accent in some ways as well, doesn't help. But yeah, it's not a bad area to work in, and some real characters, but some real good people, producing good quality products out of businesses that you drive past and think there's nothing happening there, and they turn over £1 million, making profits, you know, generating some quality products going to some real big companies, you know. We've done a little bit with JLR and what have you way back in the steel days when I was part owner of a business, and you wouldn't think it would come out the factory, you know. The company's still going, and the current owners, I know they've got a contract with Tesco, and you go past the place and you think, you know, how the hell? But it's just the quality people can produce these products.
Okay. Well, before I ask you about Midland Cold Roll sections, I know you joined, or you were part owner in 2016, and in each episode I tend to pick a piece of music to try and give a bit of a reference point to what Time in Life was, or maybe to put a bit of an earworm into people's heads to distract them. So the musical reference point I picked for this episode is One Dance by Drake featuring WizKid. So that was at #1 for 15 weeks from mid-April to the end of July 2016, which hopefully coincides, if my maths is right, with your co-ownership starting for Midland Cold Roll sections that you just mentioned a second ago. So can I ask you a little bit about that business and how, I'm assuming that was the point of the switch from a corporate role in management accountancy to ownership. So what prompted you to do that? You mad fool. What were your objectives and outcomes at the beginning? What did you learn, and what fun did you have along the way?
I made that classic mistake way back in the day, and I think it started back when I had my ZX Spectrum 48K, and me and my cousin used to be able to copy, in the good old days of cassette recordings, you used to be able to copy, and then we'd sell copies of games to other people, and we'd make a quid here and there and what have you. And I always wanted to run my own business, because I thought all we'll do is sit there all day and count my money, drink nice drinks and food while everybody else is making the money for me, sit with my feet up. And 40 years later, you realise that that's something that's definitely not the case, you know. But I've always wanted to be control of my own destiny, I guess, and I had the opportunity with two other managers at Hadley's who were very similar, wanted to run their own business really. They got the contacts, and I would be running the back office, the boring side of things, you know. So the three of us, we were offered this small manufacturing business out the back of, right in the centre of Wolverhampton, actually. And away we went, you know, left the big corporate world of Hadley's, really. Fantastic business, you know, and gone through the succession from the owner that was there to his son and his came with all fantastic new ideas and what have you, new practices, and it just felt the right time for us to try and do our own thing, really. And then you get you into the business and realise what the figures are put together from the account of the previous owner is actually, what should we say? So you then quickly find out the issues that you've got to overcome, and we tried to put the procedures and processes in place that we'd learned at Hadley's and MetSec, because it's a very similar environment, products range. And we had some real challenges in that business, you know, with steel prices going through the roof, that we couldn't really pass all on to customers, so our margin was constantly being squeezed with the investments we were trying to do to bring machinery and tooling up to date. A lot of challenges there, and learned a lot, really. But then the opportunity arose through to acquire Breakwell's, because my mum is 80 now, still going, still bookkeeping. She was the bookkeeper at Breakwell's, and she caught wind that the owner was looking to retire, semi-retire. Would I be interested? So knew nothing of paint at all, but thought, how difficult could it be? Paint's paint, isn't it? You know, very naively. And then that got delayed slightly through COVID and all that, the lockdown. And at the similar sort of time to that, the owner of ARX and Sparks as was, she got health issues, so she was looking to move on, retire fully. And there was a lot of similarities in customer base, really. So it was, let's bolt these two companies together, two different sites, and grow them that way. And then COVID comes along, you know, and changes a whole host of things. But my roots were always in manufacturing, you know, and still is now. But we're from the outside looking in and trying to support manufacturers as much as much as possible, really.
So I remember, I think the reason you originally caught my eye was the starting of the companies, and then watching you sort of fight that battle of COVID and having the plans to turn things around on one timeline, and then the world definitely conspiring against you to delay things. So going back, kind of maybe let's breeze over the whole COVID thing, but what can you tell us what the companies did at that point, maybe what their audience was, what the service was, and then maybe how, in the sort of 6 years since, how things have changed?
My the on Breakwell's was always historically was the automotive industry, so the threading sheds and the local the little one-man bands and what have you, but they always fought price, weren't happy unless they could get it for more or less nothing. And that was really difficult to try and grow that business, because I said, well, we can do something on price, but you need to buy all the consumables from me. And these guys are very stuck in the way, very talented, but stuck in their own ways. And they'll drive 5 miles past us to save 50p on a sleeve of tape or something, you know. So, but what we'd also got there was access to industry, manufacturers, and what have you. So the switch was always to go and supply to industry rather than automotive, because it was bigger quantities, better margins, more consistent purchasing, and so we tried to make that switch very early, really. Hadn't sold anything on websites, so we were going to sell on websites, and but I needed to bring key people in to try and sustain that growth. and very similar for the other business ARX. Both companies can supply any product. We've got supply routes to all companies, and we can supply any product. It's just getting our name out there and finding the best ways to do it, really. So we've got the same issues with both companies, and to try and grow them to something what I wanted to do. That classic, we'll make $1 million, we'll grow to $1 million in 2 or 3 years. That classic. As an accountant, I mean, how crazy. I needed to bring experienced people in, key people in to help support the growth. And I did that before I got the growth. Okay. But they were going to bring growth with them. And when they didn't, it starts to impact on that bottom line. And then
so show, so I was going to say, the audience for this show is very much people working in or probably owning SMEs. They're all in that similar battle of, or I guess a lot of people are similar to what you described as the battle of how do we break into the supply chain for the big guys? How do we get on their list, all these things that put up to stop us getting in? So how did you go about addressing that? Was that by building this team you talk about, or what were your thoughts of how would you get onto the supply lists?
Breakwell's had a really good, strong name anyway. But really didn't push and develop those connections they had with industry, because it was all about the more interesting from a visual point of view of selling to car repairers and small body shops. So we worked for 18 months on becoming not an approved supplier. I don't think we could never use that terminology with Tata, but we supplied touch-up paints for one of their ranges. And once it took so long, but we just had to prove the quality of the people and the product to go through the various challenges and tests that they set for us. And once you got one on board, you could then build on that by using that as we supply Tata. We can, it gives you a bit of kudos and a bit of respectability, I guess. And that's where it kind of still helps us with Breakwells. From an ARX point of view, it's so difficult, and we haven't cracked that at all. Where we are based in Willenhall, we've got, the lock industry is really decimated, but we've got the biggest one still with us, just up the road, and they won't. If I could just supply some workwear to them high-vis range, just one range, that would be enough for us. And you can't get through the door. We've got a galvanizer, probably the UK's biggest galvanizers, and we can't get past the lady who answers the phone, shall we say? And you try always, and she's always the same person that seems to to block you, really. And we've sent samples, and the big thing with all sustainability that some of the big companies play at. I'll say to them, if you run out of product, I can walk it to you in 10 minutes. I can cycle it to you in 2 minutes. And you just find it so difficult with ARX. We haven't been able to do that. So I'd love to know how people do it. We tried to follow what the process that we did with Breakwells, but just couldn't get it. Just can't get it to work with ARX. We've got a train station being built right next to us, and the planning for that's been going on before my time of ownership. And there was a verbal agreement that the guys, any contractors working on that around us, would buy product from ARX in terms of safety wear. And the Kia and various contractors have been there for over 2 years, and they've not spent one penny with us, and yet they're all around us. You see the corporate tours of 10, 12 people that I think I put on me videoing on LinkedIn, all looking at a set of stairs, how pretty they are, and they're in pristine orange high-vis jackets, trousers, hats, and it's just come and help us little guys, that that would really make a difference. I had a chance to meet the local Richard Parker, the mayor, about a month or so ago at a Q&A in Willenhall, and I said to him, when you give out these contracts, can you not, put something in the contracts that they have to source so much of the supply to make the product, the site within a mile radius, and good point. I'll come back to you. I'll get one of the team to come back to you, and scribbled away, and 4.5 weeks on and no reply, But that would, I say to a lot of people, that would make such a difference to any town, really. And I see them they're not even buying from the local food place, the cafes and whatever. You just go and make such a difference to people. I'm not saying give us the order, but give us the opportunity, and we don't get that. And I'm sure there are others like it, because sometimes you think it's just you that's. I don't like to use the word failing, but it feels that way, that you can't get in.
Frustrated,
yeah, and I'm sure there are others watching, listening this that will share the same frustrations, and it's good to know sometimes that it's not just you and you're not actually failing. It's just it's not right for you at this, for whatever reason, So that's
okay.
That's where we are with
challenges
the really.
Have there been challenges having a big civil engineering project outside the business as well? If they're building a train station, I take it that's been a nightmare in the real world. It might look nothing on the internet, but I imagine it's caused you lots of pain.
Yeah, it's decimated the ARX business, the turnover. We could go back to before the station was built. We were averaging around 13,500 turnover a month, and we do January we did zero, February £1,500, and I've just got an order for £3,000 in March, and it's just decimated the business, because of they take part of the land from you and give you some compensation for a fixed period. So we start off with Buckingham Group back in 2023. They have the conversations, and we were in the, because we've got the two businesses, we were looking to expand Breakwells on the ARX premises in Willenhall, and we were told we'll be working around you. We do need to take the end of the building away, but just for structural work, but it won't affect the business. So we planned ahead, went ahead to put in a not a fancy spray booth, but a spray booth that cost paint systems, etc. Stocked it ready to open, and then Buckingham were like, we're probably going to have to take 2 meters of the building away, which was the width of the spray booth, and we'd already spent and committed. Well, we committed to it. Don't worry, you'll be compensated. And we were kind of told the figure to put in a month based on what others people had been impacted by, which was far more than what we needed. But as long as it was only 6 months, we'd be able to ride that out, Buckingham's go bump. And we speak to the combined authority. They know nothing about us, even though they walked past us, the building, the company, whilst doing their initial planning with Buckingham's. And October, we have the first meeting with Kia, 2023, and at that point, people are chasing us for money for the what we spent on the expansion of Breakwells, which we have, but not for long. We have the working capital around us to fund that, as well as labour, slight increase of labour, and existing creditors. And then the compensation that was due to come in September actually finally arrives at the end of May 24, by which time we'd lost all suppliers because we couldn't pay them. We couldn't process orders because we couldn't get product in. And it's not been right since, so it's nearly 2 years now of hell, really. So we, and because you've got two businesses, it's like, well, the promises kept being made that, oh yeah, we'll your compensation is coming, but can we come and take the land away from you? And do you mind us putting all the plant on the front? It completely blocks your business from the road, so people think you've closed. Can we close? You're okay with us closing the roads? I mean, go back to the beginning of this year, tarmacking the path and the road outside. It'd be a couple of hours, and I think it was like 3 days later. And we tried to get in and out, and we were like, you're going to have to wait, you know. And it's like, but we run a business here. And then to see them digging it back up from Friday last week that they'd just tarmacked 3-4 weeks ago because they hadn't put edging stones in, you think, you know, all these projects, no wonder they overrun, you know. Some of the stories that you hear from the guys actually doing the work, that it's quite frightening, really, the money that's been wasted. So we would go back to 24 to try and keep things ticking over at ARX. We would take money out to Breakwells into ARX. And of course, the money never comes back into ARX to give back to Breakwells. And before you know it, Breakwells is in the same problem as ARX just 6 months later. So we were advised that we have to, best thing to do is restart the business. And we did that in July 24. And I'm still chasing compensation claims for all the impact that it's caused since, you know. So it's been horrific, really, how it's, you know, Breakwells, we were going 500,600,000 turnover a year, 2023. We're doing 150,000 that first year as Newco, £150,000, you know, and that impact, you know, that loss of turnover, coupled with decimating the ARX turnover. And looking back, you think, well, should I have just packed it in? Should I have just stopped then? And what I know now, you know, I'm personally insolvent for 6 years and made 4 payments with that. And it's a surefire way of stopping people ringing you, offering you banking services and et cetera, because it stops when you're insolvent. Everything closes, offers go, nobody contacts you. And you do get the odd rogue one at LinkedIn, how we could plan for your retirement, et cetera. And I always love emailing back going, really keen to talk to you. I've just made my 3rd payment on my IVA. Could you give me some advice? And the connection goes quite quickly. So I've learned how to get rid of sales calls on contacts on LinkedIn, unwanted sales contacts. And stupidly, I'm still here, you know, clinging to the hope of getting that compensation. I had a conversation with members of FSB, which I found is such a for the money you spend every year, it's such a great organisation for support.
Okay.
That are actually starting the legal route to take Kia or whoever to court now. I found they've got funding for legal fees. The solicitor I had the initial conversation with was like, oh, this needs to go to the High Court because of the value. And I think he was trying to put the frighteners on me. I was like, well, we'll have to do it because I've got that's the impact, you know. So that's where we are. But both businesses are stable and surviving, and we don't need the compensation for us to grow, but it just slows the growth.
So obviously your perseverance is admirable, and one of the, as we've sort of discussed before this interview, one of the, I think, great things about talking honestly and openly is, as SMEs, many of us, we fight battles. They're not sexy, they're hard, and you know, sometimes you think, oh, is it only us that goes through those challenges? And you know, we're all maybe keener to talk about the wins than we are the losses. So I think it's useful to talk openly and honestly. Within your own organisation, I can understand and recognise and admire your sort of perseverance, but how do you keep the rest of your teams around you motivated and going through all this?
We're down to, there's myself and 3 of us now, so we're down to 4 people. And we were over both companies 13 people back in the end of 2023. So how do I keep them on side? By just being open and honest with them, really. this is where we are, but this is what we're trying to do to protect them and make sure they get paid every month. You know, they're the first to be paid, and us SME owners are always the last and probably the lowest to be paid, even though people don't believe it. But since I go back September 2023, I don't know if I'm going to be paid every month, and I managed to do it every month somehow. Nothing like what I was earning when I was at Hadley's and Metsec, but it just covers the mortgage and just covers the bills. And it's, you know, we just keep. There's two that's been with me, you know, since all the troubles, and they'll be rewarded. You know, we're going to pass on some ownership of the business, but I said, let me make sure we clear all the debts up and any make sure the business is strong before we give you a share, to make sure you don't end up having to clear up any messes. So, but just being open and honest with them, and yeah, just telling them as it is, you know. And I'd say they've stayed with me. I don't know how they have sometimes, because I can't get out of bed some days. You know, every morning I dread waking up. I seriously dread waking up, because I don't know who's going to be waiting for me. The debt collectors, I've had 6 of those, and everyone takes a bit with them, as well as the money. They take a bit of your soul with them, and enthusiasm and what have you. So I dread every day, genuinely dread every day when I wake up. And then you talk yourself round, and I'm like, I've got to try and lead a team. We're only a small team now, but trying to lead them, yeah, I'm just open and honest with people. Probably too open. People will say some of my LinkedIn posts, you see all these fantastic success stories, and I ask, well, what's success? My success is survival, you know. So, yeah. Okay. I try and be a bit more light-hearted on LinkedIn now. With one of my recent posts was a new starter, and it was one of the ladies' dogs. Dogs were coming in, and we did a couple of videos where we prepared for them, and I think I had the most interaction, one of my posts, for quite some time, you know. So we have one sign now being moved around outside saying business is operating as normal, and I shan't say I stole it from down the road, but I did, and now I think they've realised that I'd stolen it, so they steal it back overnight, and there's a bit more light-heartedness. What did they call it when? Is it gallows humorist, I suppose?
Yeah. Okay, so we're having talked about all the challenges that SMEs face, and particularly some of the very unpredictable challenges you've had to battle, and how that must keep you very busy day to day. I'm going to ask a question that I normally do to change the mood a little bit, and that is, most people watch this show at the weekend when it goes out. So can I ask what topic you enjoy talking to people about at the weekend, say at a party, at the pub? So what do you chat about when you're not sat in front of a computer on a Teams call?
I've got my 15-year-old son. He's into he's learning guitar and drums. So I've never been to so many gigs as I have the last 18 months with him.
Right.
So we'd be the old days of we go way back to Simply Red, Luther Vandross at the NEC or the NIA in Birmingham, and those big events too. At the Hare and Hounds in Birmingham, it's just like a pub with a couple of small rooms, performance rooms, watching local bands, and bands from Australia that are coming over and I've never heard of, and you go, and I sit at the back going, you know, my ears are ringing, and then about halfway through you kind of realise that actually they're not too bad. So we're a lot of gigs, small gigs with my lad and my partner. The three of us will go around. So that'll be once a month, I guess. It seems to be at the moment. Youth football. So I'm a chair of and restarted Woodinall Football Club, or started Woodinall Football Club. So that's your Sunday's gone, as many people know who are part of youth football. So so that takes up my weekends, I guess, music and football. But all around the family. You know, my partner Claire, there's the three of us, all around. Just anything but work, just to try and take your mind off how we're going to pay for this, how we're going to get the finance this order, or where we're going to get the orders, you know. So music and football, youth football. I won't mention Wolves because I won't mention Wolves at the moment, although we are on a nice little run. So yeah, a bit too late.
At least you've mentioned them towards the end of the episode. So I mean, if people have turned off already, then we've not lost them that far before the end. So that's okay.
You can edit that bit out, I guess. The escape is on. Let's date stamp that. Sorry.
The final question that I always ask of guests, which seems particularly appropriate then, is what do you have planned, or what do you hope to achieve in the next 12 months? And that can be personal or business. So it can be the success of the football team, the success of your lads' music, or the business. Or what do you think? What's your hopes and plans for the next 12 months?
Well, by the summer, I was just having a conversation this morning with potential small investor in one of the businesses, and it was like 12 months time, and I was like, I haven't got 12 months. You know, we need to see signs of growth and stability, and sustained stability throughout the summer, really. You know, with all increases of this, that, and the other that's hitting us and it's going to hit us. You know, we really, where will we be in 12 months? You know, what do we want to be? But we want to be, with my business head on. I always want to be collaborative with people. So we all make a bit, is my way of saying things. You know, we don't hammer the supplier for pricing. We don't hammer him down. But my customers will get a good deal, but I won't be giving things away. And then if we can all make a bit, is there some left that we can give to good causes? You know, so we've tried to do that, and we haven't had much to give away, really. So we try and give a bit of time to local causes, but we don't really shout about it. We just do it. And sometimes you see these things on social media, look at us doing this, but actually, are you showing how good, you know, what are you actually showing there? You know, the good cause, highlighting the good cause, or the perceived how good I am by doing my bit, you know. So we really want to escalate that. So on the apparel side, on ARX Apparel's side, I've a couple of, I'm an ambassador at my son's school, which is a bit like a governor, but not as formal from what I can really gather. We're looking at sharing and school uniform. You know, when people leave school and they've outgrown their uniform, he's donated it to us so we can give that to people who probably can't keep up with the spend and cost and regularity of, you know, when kids are growing as well, they don't last very long in clothing. So we're looking at a uniform exchange. So we've got two local schools. One's definitely interested, and we want to take it off school site so parents don't feel, you know, the stigma of asking schools for help. You know, if we can set it up away from school as well, for no benefit to us financially, just it's something that, being a parent, you know, we get the cost of it all. So we really want to get that up and running, really. We have a new facility being built to replace the one that the works on the train station demolished. Will be finished April, 30 days in April. So we were hoping the beginning of April, but it looks like it could be more the 29th and 30th of April. But and we'll get ourselves settled in there. There was a spray booth lined up to go in there from Breakwell's point of view. So all the expansion plans we had 2.5 years ago will come back on board, or back on plan. So my lad's trying to get in a band, so we'll be driving him around to various gigs and practices and what have you. And then we're in the quarter, from a football point of view, our team are in the quarterfinal of the cup, and we just missed out on promotion in the first league of the season, so we're just about to start the second league of the season, so we're looking for the double. But a cup final would be nice for all our players, just experience. But they are 14 and 15 and they know everything, and very often when I try and talk to them about the world, and we try and offer more than just football, I just get the grunt from them, and you know, so I keep trying to say to them we're close to a cup final, because you may never happen again in life, you know. But it comes a bit too easy these days, for not like it was back in my day. So we've got lots of. You don't always, you know, when things are tough, we never really focus on the good things, really, do we? So I'm certainly guilty of that, and I know others are. So it is that the weekend of trying to set some kind of targets and whatever. So we've got a lot of good things to look forward to the next 12 months, both professionally and in the personal life.
And I guess particularly talking to the viewers of this who are based around West Midlands, how do they find out more about Breakwell coatings and paints and ARX, apparel and PPE? So how do they find out more? How do they contact you, maybe follow you? How do they find out about the dog?
The dog's part-time, just 2 days a week. So he's he's quite chilled and relaxed, to be fair. So the best way to find more about him is actually coming to find us we're right in the centre of Weymouth. Bring dog biscuits and normal biscuits for the staff. LinkedIn is the place to find me, really. Is the best place. We have websites. When I restarted the businesses, we had to change the name slightly. I never really thought that I'd have to use that name on the website, so they're quite long web domains. So we've got Breakwell's coatings and paints.co.uk and ARX Apparel and PPE.co.uk. I wanted to say ARX Clothing, but apparently we have to be a bit more professional and say apparel, even though I never know if it's how many P's, how many R's, how many L's and A's. I don't know. We've got those websites are nowhere near complete, so that's another challenge for the year. But contact me on LinkedIn. That's the best way, and yeah, love to chat more and share stories. And if I can be an ear to listen to other people and their struggles, if I can help, then please reach out.
Brilliant. So before we sign off and say thanks, do you have a final sentence, question, observation, or thought? What would you like to sign off the episode with? The comeback is better than the setback. Pretty good. I'll commend that as a good answer for this. Full credit for your perseverance, and yeah, that's one to remember. So there's glory in surviving and succeeding. Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. I will wrap up with the usual words, just to say, if anyone would like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, or in particular if you'd like to appear in a future episode, please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc. Let's try again, at inquiries@mtdcnc.com, or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From me, Mark Weymouth at the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. Cheers. Have fun.